Each Sunday night, I'd watch the practice with none of my friends. I'd turn the dial to ABC to see the creep of the week that Bobby Donald defends. But I'm out of practice.
With your hosts, Keith Varney.
Out of practice.
And Brenton, Mike, and Deglio.
Way back in high school, most every night, my mom watched QVC, so I missed the practice. There was no TiVo, what could I do? Wait 15 years, get fat, then stream it on Hulu. Out of practice.
Check your hair. It's week 2 of YouTube.
Out of practice.
Bringing you the RC Cola of live streams. The GoBots.
And welcome to the Out of Practice podcast. We are a weekly podcast going week by week, episode by episode through David E. Kelley's award-winning series, The Practice. This week we are discussing season 4, episode 11, entitled Blowing Smoke. It is Out of Practice podcast episode number 72. How's it going, Mike?
Keith, it's going well. We are now officially live on the YouTube. We figured it out. We promised things would improve, and here we are. We have slightly better visuals because I said, go nuts with the Photoshops, Keith, and you did not disappoint.
Oh my goodness. No, the amount of time that I spent photoshopping and you spent like building tech, video troubleshooting this week is extraordinary, but it's worth it. Our experiment last week turned out to be a blast. And,
yeah, we had a lot of fun.
So glad to have new people checking it out, maybe discovering that we're doing this in the first place. And we're working. We're going to make it better as we go. We definitely look far more professional than we have any reason to do, or any right to do based on the sound of our actual podcast. But if you're just listening to this, check us out. Find us on YouTube. Just search for Out of Practice Podcast or The Practice Podcast. We're going to come right up there for you.
I wish I had the Gaussian blur that you have because it really hides some.
Well, I mean, spoiler alert into filings and subpoenas, but I took some shit from our good friend Phoenix about the quality of my video. So I have, for you, Phoenix, spiced it up a little bit. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the wall, so we have spiced it up. But yes, I definitely spent an absurd amount of money buying the tech to eventually have better video.
We're not streaming Fortnite anytime soon. That's the truth. But no. I will say, to finish my previous thought, we are looking into some fun live things we can do with you. Keith is not a big fan of live. I
hate live.
Yeah, but we're thinking about it. We've got some satellite podcast shows that live in the universe of this that we'll be doing through some sort of Patreon experience, or not, or we'll just let everybody see it. Who knows? And I think the Oopsie Spectacular and maybe some choice episodes here and there we'll do live. We'll let people who subscribe financially into the live chat with us, so you can watch the episode along with us. We can do that, I've found. So we're working on it, is what I was, and I sincerely mean it. We are working on it. We really didn't want to do any work. Was the whole point of this podcast, and then people listened to it. So we're working on it.
Go back and listen to the pilot. We talked for like 20 minutes about how this is going to be no work. We're going to do nothing. It's just going to be super simple. No edits, no nothing. And look at this. I don't know what we're doing, but we're having fun.
I'll say that we're having fun. Keith, for days I've been excited about recording today. So that hasn't happened maybe ever. So
no, well, we have an action-packed episode today.
Before both of our computers melt, we got to do what we got to do.
We got to do what we got to do. which I don't know what you're setting up there, but I'm going to pretend that you were queuing up us finally talking about.
All right.
So I'm pretty sure that's not what you were setting up, but we're going to get into filings and subpoenas after we do this. Because we have been planning to talk about Hollywood, which, of course, was the Netflix series that I think it's been out long enough now that it's not super spoilery to talk about. But starring our dear friend Dylan McDermott and Holland Taylor, both on the show. And I don't want to get too far into it because we don't have a lot of time, but I will say, I turned to Jillian as we were watching it sort of near the end of the series and watching Dylan's performance in this. And I was like, you know what? He's so great on the show. And this is such a weird thing for me to be feeling right now, but I feel genuinely proud of Dylan. Yeah. I was like, Dylan, you're crushing it. I'm so proud of you for doing such extraordinary work in Hollywood.
It was like watching your first cousin. You go to see them. They're making their like Broadway debut, and you go and watch them, and you feel that you're a participant in some sort of way. We have no affiliation. We are with Dylan McDermott.
In no way a participant in this, but it feels.
It sure felt like it. And you know what's funny is even my wife. She's watching. I think I mentioned this last week. She's watching Friday Night Lights right now, or just finished, and Steve Harris is in that.
Right.
And she keeps taking her headphones off and looking at me and going, God, I just love Eugene. And I'm like, it's so weird that the universe is cross. But
no, yeah.
I guess, and they are both so good in this.
They're, and Holland Taylor, they are so good.
We could get lost in the weeds about talking about our feelings about the show. What it really is, it's a retelling of the glamour Hollywood era, with a fable twist. It kind of alters history in a very...
Yeah, it's sort of like a fantasy. It's like
a Tarantino-ish, how it could have gone retelling.
Yeah, perhaps how it should have gone.
Right.
But it is interesting because it starts in the real world. And so it's like how it should have gone starting the beginning of the series, as if everything that led up to it was exactly our world.
There have been critical analyses that say that it would have been more powerful had it just showed exactly how things went. But the whole analogy that they're building between the fictional movie that's being produced and the meta show itself, the analogy is that we're showing how it could have been so that future generations can be inspired.
Yeah.
So
I liked it because there's so much of... We've so many books and films and TV shows just describing accurately and importantly how shitty it was. Mm-hmm. This is sort of a new genre that I actually enjoyed. It felt fresh and different to have, and I was still moved by it, even though it was totally fake and not true by the time we get into the whole fantasy spin. But I was totally moved by it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I find that Ryan Murphy, he's an acquired taste for many, but I find that he does better. Or at least I respond better to his work when he's given a shorter leash. Some of those longer seasons of American Horror Story lose the thread. They jump so much, they change plots, it gets nutty. Yeah. But here, and he's got a very limited, I think there's 8 or 10 episodes. So he's got a limited time frame to work with, and I think it's really powerful. Whatever you feel about Ryan Murphy's work, I'll say that this is one of his most beautifully shot pieces. And if you have...
it's terrific, yeah.
If you have HDR and or 4K available to you, it's absolutely worth watching just for the visual fidelity and just the beautiful cinematography of this.
Yeah, well, look, you get more lines of resolution of Bobby.
And Bobby, not only that, our bumper, I Got a Very Big Dick, comes from Hollywood.
It does. Here it is. Get ready.
I got a very big dick.
Well, at least that line does. The awesome hip hop is all me. Last things last. Which I'm coining.
How's this going?
Skip ahead 20 seconds if you want to be spoiler free for Hollywood. Skip ahead right now.
Right. Spoiler alert.
So whoever's still here, the craziest thing for practice fans, the practice fans, is that not only are Holland Taylor and Dylan McDermott in the show, but they actually end up together.
Yeah.
As a couple.
In
And
a
it's
beautiful love story.
beautiful. It could have been played. In fact, you think the whole time it's going to be played for a sex joke. Couldn't
Right.
be furthest from the truth. It's beautiful. And Dylan's
Yeah.
Dylan's arc on the show is absolutely spectacular.
Yeah. And I found their relationship one of the most moving parts of the whole series.
Yeah,
And
this still is from the season finale, and it really is a Hollywood ending.
Yeah. There
Which-
it is. So, okay, you can come back. We're done talking spoilers. But yeah, seriously, check out Hollywood. The tons of practice crossover, but also it's just a really good series.
And quickly, while we're in this bumper, or what do we call it, segment, I guess, I also want to say that I've actually not been watching a lot of TV. I've taken a time out. I watched just the news and Jeopardy, because Jeopardy had been releasing new episodes, but they have ended. And so I was going to skip this one, but on the recommendation of my brother-in-law, I checked out Jeffrey Epstein, Filthy Rich. I thought it was going to be too salacious and just...
like
I was
gross.
wrong. I was wrong. It's compelling and it's short. It's 4 episodes, and there's a lot of information I didn't know, and the stuff I did know that I thought was steeped in a lot of conspiracy theory and this and that is actually really true and really prescient for right now. Just
Interesting.
remembering that, as depressing as it is, there aren't a lot of good guys. There aren't a lot of good guys.
No, there aren't.
So anyway, that
Anyway.
is what we've been watching, and maybe we should jump to something else, Keith.
Perhaps.
Filings and subpoenas. Filings and subpoenas. Filings and subpoenas. Filings and subpoenas.
Oh, golly. Do we have a lot of filings and subpoenas? And we're going to start with a delicious and wonderful surprise we got this morning. We have a new founding sponsor, the very incredibly generous, humblingly generous Jennifer Masanova, who left us a donation and also wrote this beautiful letter, which I'm going to read part of. And it says, Dear Keith and Mike, I am making a contribution to the podcast to catch up as I recently found you guys. I don't know, maybe buy Jen and Jillian lunch for their forced silence during the recordings. Yes. Yeah, we owe Jen and Jillian more than lunch but for putting up with 72 episodes of this nonsense in their home.
And it's going, you gotta be quiet. You gotta be quiet. I'm recording.
And like with all of our technical difficulties, so it's not just like, you know, we average 2 hours per episode, but there's also like 15-20 minutes of bullshit on either end of it. It's
not just be quiet too. It's, you can't use the internet.
Oh, right.
I need all the bandwidth.
That is, yeah, sad. So anyway, you're absolutely right. We will take Jen and Jillian to lunch. She continues, I thoroughly enjoy listening while I work out or drive. My favorite parts, easily, are when Mike stops the show and asks Keith what appear to be ad hoc questions. It's usually a nice little mixture of awkwardness, improvisation, reluctant truth-telling, and self-deprecation. I love the bumpers too, of course. Yeah, Mike throwing me a curveball out of nowhere is always entertaining for everyone but me. She says, maybe on Zoom, broadcasting simultaneously, and others would come. She's asking what you mentioned before, if we could do a live episode where people could comment as it's happening. It may be fun for an episode, or I don't know, a Tales from the Basement special. That would be fun.
Yeah, there's an idea.
I think we would enjoy some visuals to go along with your stories. Well, visuals. Here we are. We are absolutely, now that we're doing a visual component of the show, especially for the This Day in the Basement, the onus is on us to come up with something to look at as well as hear. So that is going to be difficult because the digital archives from 1999 are not what they are today, but it's going to get easier as we go along. She also says, I identify a lot with you both personally. I was raised in the Philadelphia area. On the arts front, my former company in DC is a perennial sponsor of the Washington National Opera, and I have attended probably more than my share of performances, and my good friend has been a member of the National Council on the Arts since Obama was in office. So I have a lot of exposure to that world through her. Also, cats, which we are I think all of us here are cat people. I mean, I like dogs too, but I'm definitely a big old cat nerd, and you have cats, and I'm sad that I don't. She finishes, you both are so creative and really talented. I'm sure it takes a lot of work to produce what sounds like a casual conversation. Thank you for your work, and I look forward to hearing more. And then, Boston Legal. I'll also write a review on Apple. Take care, Jennifer. I can't wait. So we can play the Welcome to the Jury bumper to officially welcome you to the jury, but you are officially a founding sponsor of the Out of Practice podcast, and we truly and honestly are incredibly humbled and grateful.
We just thought nobody was going to listen. I specifically said, this is way too niche, but I guess that's where you find crazy people like you.
It's great. We find kindred spirits out here, and that's sort of the fun part of.
We should say, Jennifer mentioned. I don't know if you read it. I was busy trying to figure some shit out. She's has worked and knows people in the Philly area and Cape May, and it's
it's Center City and King of Prussia, all of it.
Yeah, it's cool.
As I emailed her back, and I was like, look, as a Philadelphia in law now, I've actually learned all of those locations. I would not have known what any of those things were, but now being a Philadelphia in law.
I don't want to jump into sports ball, but I'm wearing my Phillies cap since it seems like we're going to, at best, get 60 games of baseball this season, if that. I'm skeptical that's even true.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm not a baseball fan, so I don't really have an allegiance, but I definitely have a Phillies hat.
What'd you call your wife from Philly?
What?
Wow. Jill.
My father-in-law got us all Phillies hats, but I can't wear it anymore because it's a bright red hat, and I don't want to freak people. That's a little darker. That's better. But the one that I have is that red, and I don't want to walk around the street and freak people out till they can see what the logo is. So I've
so many more filings and subpoenas. So many more.
Sorry. We have also heard from our good friend Phoenix Cage, who sent us some really cool pictures because he discovered Paul Dooley, i.e. Judge Swackheim, is not only still alive, but still working. So he was just on the final season of Modern Family, you can see here if you're on the YouTube, at 92, is still performing. He's such a terrific actor. I'm so glad that he's become a big part of the show. And of course, for you Star Trek folks, he's Enabran Tain on Deep Space Nine. And that's so great.
Do you watch Modern Family?
Modern Family, yeah.
Do you watch it?
I watched the first season and a half, and I enjoyed it, but it just fell off the plate.
Yeah, I actually loved it. And then I'm probably 4 seasons back. So at some point, maybe now feels like a good time. I love a series finale. Oh, I love a series finale. So I want to catch up.
Oh, yeah. Well, we are going to have one in 6 years, and we're going to have to write one too. So that's going to be fun.
That's exciting. We actually have been pitching some ideas about how we can, well, I don't want to spoil anything yet, but I have some ideas.
You have a lot of ideas that you announce on the show that you haven't talked about with me. I just like to point that out.
Well, it's funny. I'm an ideas guy, but I'm not very, as Keith will attest to, I'm not very good at getting the ball rolling. But that's Keith's wheelhouse. So
you just keep announcing things until I do them.
Well, if I can excite Keith, that's the thing about Keith. If you can light a fire under his ass, shit gets done. If he's even remotely excited about something, he goes, we said this earlier, anything that's worth doing is worth overdoing. Yes. Hence a full broadcast production that took place in 7 days. that I'm doing live so that I don't. This is weird. I could just do this all in post, but I figure I'll do it live so that I don't have to record it later.
That's right. So if you're watching this, Mike is actually live directing the production as we're doing it. So I'm trying to like hint to him what we're going to get to next so he can pull up the right graphics. So boy, live. Well, it's not sort of live-ish. Well, whatever.
We'll do it live.
Do it live. All right. So also, Phoenix had a leftover comment from last episode about the jail scene, the final one with Helen, Bobby, and Swackheim. And he says, I really like that Helen, Bobby, and Swackheim ended up commiserating the obvious miscarriage of justice together, even though they were all so contentious during the trial. I really would have loved to have seen the three of them go out for a drink and continue the post-mortem of the case. For one, it would help them unburden the guilt they feel over each playing some part in the verdict going the way it did, but it could also lead to some really interesting points on the issues in the criminal justice system. I mean, how often do the disparate perspectives of a judge, a DA, and a defense attorney get layered together to provide the full picture of the law? I'd love that. I liked that scene. I would love to see that extended further. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. On Instagram, Jadian's Dream also weighed in on this, saying, I fully support Swackheim's decision to hold them both in contempt of court. But to bring a bag of fries without ketchup is just a dick move.
Yeah, that's a good point. Especially since there's no water fountain in there. They could very well be thirsty. Those are probably soggy fries. His fingers have been all over. So it is a dick move. We concur 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fries idea, but I don't want, especially in these days. We're not handing each other bags of anything. Come on now.
Let's actually quickly.
Oh, okay.
Interest to no one.
That could be the title of our podcast.
We randomly, not so randomly, but we are probably going to head up to Cape May, New Jersey for a little vacay just for a night next week. What's the outdoor seating situation there? Would you guys be comfortable in some sort of socially distanced fries or maybe sitting on the front lawn? What do you think? Where are you guys at?
I would imagine. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we have a little back deck here.
Oh, great.
So,
okay.
So you could come here. We'll talk offline, but I was like, wait, where are you guys going? Like, what's going on? Let's talk about, no, we're going to talk offline and spare our tens of listeners all of the.
All right. Filing subpoenas. Are we done or where we got?
No, of course we have so many today. Also, Leanne writes, enjoyed the like and subscribe Tom Brady. Or maybe she didn't. She said, oh my gosh, no.
It was cute.
Which is fair. Also, we got a lot of comments. So one of the cool things about the YouTube here, if you
stop calling it the YouTube.
The YouTube.
Sound like my mom.
I'm old. I go on the YouTube. You can you can get a transcription of what we're talking. I wonder how it's going with this voice. They do live transcriptions of what we're doing, which is amazing. And they're amazingly accurate until I checked the transcript of our theme song, which I will do a poetic reading for you here if you didn't see it on Instagram.
Let me get your one shot.
Yeah, here we go. Back in high school, each Sunday night, I'd watch the practice with none of my friends. I turned the dial to ABC to see the creep of the week, where homeless keep burning, and inviting Deck Liam a 3-ply way. Back in high school, most every night, my mother watched QVC. I'm Tina. What could I do? Wait 15 years, get fat. So it's pretty awesome. I love bad transcriptions. Fuck it. We have unlimited time. So when I took my show, I Got Fired to South Korea to perform it there, they had people actually translate the entire thing and do super titles in Korean.
That's cool.
Super cool. But before we left, Actually, you know what? This is the funnier story. So one night,
Audible.
Audible. I called the sports ball.
Blue
So-
54.
There was this one scene that ends with like a comedic, fuck me, that sort of a deal. And it was
Anytime
a
Keith
scene,
says, fuck me, it's comedic. Trust me.
profoundly. But it was a scene in which my character and his best friend had been mistaken for a couple, which they couldn't have cared less about, but they would just had to sort of describe that they weren't. Anyway, so every night that got a giant reaction from the crowd. And I'm like, it's really not that funny. It's just sort of like, just the, blowout for the rest of the, for the scene. Until I talked to the translator and there's no translation for fuck me. So what the title said was rape me. That is how they finished the scene every night. And I had no idea that was what was happening. So I can only imagine what their experience of that show was.
I don't know what to say, buddy. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it was a little it was a little awkward.
Explicit, but
when I thought back about all of that, I was like, ugh.
quickly, I'll just interject. When, my wife was doing Fiddler, the whole production was in Yiddish, performed in
Right.
Yiddish, and then super titled for the audience in English and Russian. I believe it was Russian. And initially, the opening song is very famous in Fiddler on the Roof. It's tradition, tradition. And initially, I don't know, the initial translation for that was the toilet, whatever. It sounded like the toilet. They kept saying the toira, du toira, something like that. I'm not trying to be offensive. I just don't speak Yiddish. And so Jen, she was rehearsing it. She was practicing that song, and I just kept going around the house, the toilet. And I was like, I can't believe it. That sounds so much like the toilet. They can't possibly stick with that. And turns out they ended up changing it to tradizie because it sounded a little bit more.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, and it's fascinating, this kind of stuff. And to be 1,000% clear, the joke is on us for not understanding the other languages, not on them for not understanding us.
But it brings up, to circle it back to anything people might care about.
Right, fair.
What we found out is that one of our listeners who wrote in, Jennifer, actually, founding sponsor Jennifer, says she watches everything on YouTube and TV with subtitles. I am the opposite. I hate subtitles on anything. I mean, unless it's in a different language, obviously, then it's pertinent. But if I can't hear the TV, I'm not watching TV.
Oh, interesting.
I'm not a subtitle guy, and especially on YouTube, no thanks.
I will frequently split the difference. I will listen with the sound and subtitles if I don't know, why do I do that? Especially if I have to turn it down a little bit, if I can't quite hear it, having the subtitles is really helpful. All right. My goodness. We are almost 30 minutes into this.
Keith, we are YouTube stars now. This is the price. This is the price we pay.
Oh my God! All right, so the last thing is I think Leanne got us good with pointing out that when we put up the bad translation, she said this is just a clever leak of the original draft. Don't get defensive, guys, which I thought was super funny. Also, I thought I was done. We're not done. There's more. So on our YouTube video, Leanne Wright said, just when I thought this podcast couldn't get any better. Slow clap. Thank you, Leanne. Jorge Novoa said, I just finished the episode and I'm so happy you guys did this. I'll definitely vote for this as a regular thing. Well, here it is. You're getting it. Out of curiosity, how do people post Game of Thrones reaction videos and get away with it? And I think what it is if you're not doing the whole episode, there's a certain amount that you can use via fair use.
I've also found a lot of people, fair use is the best way to go about it, especially for those reaction videos. And I think there are a variety of different claims on YouTube. You can, as a content creator, you can post against other videos. And what you can do, like what HBO and the producers of Game of Thrones would do there, is they place a claim on that video And so that any monetization that video has, they take a percentage of it. Or like Fox does, well, because Keith and I don't have a lot of subscribers on our YouTube channel, so we're not worth it to them. So they just say no. So if you guys want to get us thousands of subscribers, I don't know why I put that on you, listeners. Sorry. If we were to achieve on our own thousands of subscribers,
us successful.
They probably wouldn't strike us. But that's just not where we're at. The other thing I've noticed,
funny,
a lot of people who want to so Jeopardy. There are channels that just show the Jeopardy episode right after it aired. Basically, they or they DVR shows and then put them on the internet for people who don't have TV or whatever. And the way a lot of them get around it on the back end is they speed up the episode fast enough that
so the bots can't recognize it.
Right. But in order to do that, because Keith, would it surprise you to know I've looked into it?
Not in the slightest.
You have to speed it up so fast that it becomes like Chipmunks, or slow it down so much that it's just, at that point, it's not enjoyable. It's already, I can't believe people listen to an episode of television. To do that at like 6 times the speed sounds absolutely insane. So,
well, that would be better than us doing it like this. I really think Bobby
that 2-hour episode is 6 hours.
Really hot.
I got a very big dick. Boom. Okay, we've destroyed this joke. Moving forward.
Okay, last thing, and I mean it this time, is Phoenix says, "Hey, Mike, really enjoying the visual component of the show. I love the soft light on you and the dark green glowy background, plus a shallow depth of field for even more separation. Keith, nice. Wall. It's really holding up the ceiling." So
he made me pee myself. That was funny.
Oh man, we got nailed. Okay, it is finally time to jump into the past as the past was transitioning into the future, because we hit the year 2000. This episode was aired on January 9th, 2000, which makes us all ask the eternal question, what were you doing
This day in the basement?
I guess I'll start, Keith.
I think you should.
Well, a few things. First thing I'll bring up is that... Oh, wow. Hold on. Sorry.
Uh-oh. We're live.
No.
We're live.
No, we're live. I knew I was going to say this, and then it still caught me. I didn't think it was going to. So this is the penultimate. So we jumped. So we were in mid-December, the 20th last week, and now we're in mid-January, so we missed the Christmas holiday. And so I was thinking what I was doing back. This was Christmas 1999, and it'll be the penultimate Christmas with my dad. The final Christmas will be the year 2000, but by that point he was not really, it was bad. Things were getting pretty bad at that point. And so this was the last
like normal
full Christmas I had with my whole family was there, and my dad was in a good place, and my brother and sister were home from their variety of, my sister was still in high school, my brother was out a working man, and I had just failed out of college officially. But I've been talking with my wife, and what's really kind of, sorry, I'm bringing the episode way down here, but what's scary is that I really tried to remember that Christmas and remember some things happening in my life then. And what's really nutty is that I can't. And my repression and a lot of the, repression / just being hurt or whatever is going on in the brain. That's from my therapist. It starts around now. And so this day in the basement is going to get kind of wacky for me for the next bit of time. But this was the last Christmas we had with my dad firing on all cylinders. And this isn't a picture from that Christmas, but I wanted to bring it in. Oh, that's me graduating high school, actually.
Oh, not cute.
Wrong picture. This is it. So you'll see the man front and center there is my dad. And this is the previous summer. I was doing a cabaret for a local theater company at home, and my dad, like, just sat in the front row every night that we did that cabaret. And so that's him watching me perform it was 99. So this is my dad from that period of time. So, okay, so that was that. But now let's jump. I wanted to play this for you since we talked about the year 2000. For those of you who relived it or who lived through it, or those of you who maybe you were young, so you don't quite remember, I pieced together a quick reminder of the absolute insanity that was, I should say for myself, I have always been fascinated with current news. So if something is in the news or in the zeitgeist, I want to fill myself with as much as I can. I just consume. And so it was fun to go back, blast from the past for Y2K, because that's all people were talking about. As we were rolling up to the new year, people were freaking the fuck out about Y2K. So I put this together for us.
Sure were.
December 31st, 1999.
You made this.
Y2K.
Just how bad will it get?
Everything that could go wrong did.
The systems will fail.
There still exists a general state of either denial, complacency, or even apathy about both the reality and the potential effects of Y2K.
It is a particularly large global disaster in the making.
What date is a computer going to think it is when we get to 2000?
They're preparing for martial law.
I've got a revolver right now, but I wanted something more.
Could abolish all paper currency and coins throughout the world?
8 to 10% of the population were fairly confident that this was going to be an apocalypse.
Call now and get the ultimate Y2K survival kit. The premier wind-up and solar-powered flashlight and radio. A diagnostic computer program to test your PC. 3 soup samples from Hourglass Foods.
Soup samples.
3, 2, 1, happy 2000!
The world didn't end, but some of the vending machines stopped working. The International Weather website displayed the wrong year. That must have been annoying to fix.
Happy New Year!
$500 billion well spent.
So that was Y2K. It was basically a computer glitch that didn't really glitch, and nothing happened.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely remember everyone talking about it and thinking about it, and like, oh, do we need to patch the computer? Do we need to do whatever? If you are one of our younger listeners, what was that? What was everybody afraid of?
So basically, what the premise was that all of the computer systems built from the very beginning of computing were only really based with enough digits to go up to 1999. And so they hadn't put the 2 in where the 1 is. And so they were afraid that, if the computer can't update the date, mass systems will fail. Nuclear weapons will fail. Everybody's computer will stop working. This, that, and the other thing. Right. Banking systems will all be screwed.
Yeah. No, it was quite the thing. Yeah. All right. Well, then I will very quickly do my This Day in the Basement, and I have a photo here from my Christmas 99, which you'll note that I have blurred the rest of my family's faces for their own protection, and but this was one of my family traditions that, although we are lined up in age, we usually line up in height, and this is Christmas Eve. We all hang our stockings over the fireplace, and then we take a picture of all of us. So we have, from the time we were 2 years old all the way up to this year, we're all lined up there taking pictures. And so what you also see on my face there is my first attempt at facial hair.
Woo, girl.
Grew the 90s college goatee, which stayed with me for most of college. And now I've just gone full beard, and I wore them both for the same reason, to hide this part.
Oh, interesting.
So there it is. That's what. Oh yeah, no. If I were thin, I would definitely not have a beard.
It's crazy because I used to do the same type of shit, or I'd go in the pool and wear a t-shirt. It's funny the lengths the chubby will go to try to think they're masking the chubby when in reality, although Keith, right there, you are not in any way, shape, or form overweight there.
In the picture? Yeah, no, I wasn't yet. I was working my way up to it. really, by the time I finished college, I got up to, I weighed more than my favorite football player, which is never a good sign.
I'll say this, it doesn't need saying, but we both understand body dysmorphia and the shame of being, but at the same time, we do not project that in any way. Like, I've lived long enough to know that, like, you do you. Everybody is beautiful, and just be healthy.
No, for sure. And please do not ever consider my own self-loathing and shame to be transferred to anyone, anywhere other than myself.
Yeah, we're consumed enough with our own shame that we can't really put it out towards anyone else. So
we do a podcast every week where we spend most of it talking about ourselves and not the subject of the podcast. We are definitely consumed with ourselves.
That is
more
true.
Than we are anything else.
All right, well, great. That's This Day in the Basement. What else do we do on this podcast, Keith?
All right.
This Day in the Basement.
That's the wrong cue. What we do on this podcast is we hit the wrong cues as much as humanly possible.
That's true.
When we really are trying to do.
It's time for the Out of Practice Podcast's This Day in the World. The greatest hits, the biggest movies, headlines from Vermont, essential sports updates, and for some inexplicable reason, the weather from 20 years ago. Now back to Keith and Mike.
Like I said, we are talking about January 9th, 2000. We have finally broken the streak, and we have a new number one song. This, of course, is What a Girl Wants by Christina Aguilera. The number one movie was Stuart Little.
Really?
I think in its Stuart Little. I think it was his second or third week at number one, taking in $11 million. The cover of the Burlington Free Press, this one I enjoyed, had a huge headline, very frightened. Homicides reach a 7-year high in Vermont there in 1999. Now, I would like to put
Does that
you
mean
on
there
the
was
spot.
5?
Yeah, how many would you think would be worth freaking out about that much in the state of Vermont?
Statewide for the year?
Statewide homicides in 1999.
150.
7-year high.
150.
There were 17 total murders in the state of Vermont. And we were freaking out.
Wow, that's insane.
It was lawless chaos. It was Mad Max through Burlington. Because 17,
that's statewide.
Statewide for the entire year. As a point of reference, I did look it up. In the state of New York, our neighboring state, there were 903 that year. But we found a way to stay safe. We found a way to survive the carnage that was. Which brings us now to everyone's favorite segment.
It's time for sports.
It was wild card weekend in the NFL. The New York Football Giants and the Philadelphia Football Eagles were well rested that week. Elsewhere, it was the day of the Music City Miracle, when the Titans beat the Bills on a last-second lateral kickoff for a touchdown. Jeff George and the Vikings beat the Cowboys, Gus Frerotte and the Racist Names beat the Lions, and Dan Marino took down the Seahawks. Yes!
You bitch.
That's for you and for our good friend Cloud Lover 69.
Wow. That's funny.
All right. It's finally to move on to important things, and oh no.
Weather.
Oh, yeah, you're right, buddy.
We're
There's
still
more.
doing
Can
this.
you tell me the weather?
Oh no, you made your own graphic.
Cause we all need to know. Was it hot? Did it snow?
I wasn't going to build you one, but you built your own.
The weather from 21
Of course you
years
did.
ago.
Of course you did.
And this one's just to show me before we even talk about it. I just want to.
Wow, nicely done.
Well, Keith, I've summed it up here. It was January 9th, 1999 in Rochester, where you were freezing your little Patuxent, 23 degrees, going all the way down to -9. Felt like 13 degrees Fahrenheit at its hottest. And I'm sure it was snowing, and I'm sure it was absolutely miserable. Yes. I was back in King of Prussia, where it was rainy. Got up to 40 degrees. It did get down to 34 degrees Fahrenheit overnight. And then in Boston, where our stars live in their metaverse, it was 56 degrees and rainy, so balmy. But they at least weren't suffering as bad as you were, Keith. And I have to say, that is your time machine weather.
Wow. All right. So, those graphics are amazing. But here's my question. Are you planning to update those graphics every single week? And will you commit? Will you commit here on the air, live on the YouTubes and on the Apple Podcasts, in your ears, in front of all of our fan, to update those graphics every single week?
You're goddamn right I am.
Yeah!
Oh, man.
This is mess. Oh,
if you're not watching on the YouTube, you should really check it out.
Damn it! My life has value, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
It's time to talk about the damn episode.
Finally, we are talking about The Practice, Season 4, Episode 11, entitled Blowing Smoke. It was written by David E. Kelly and Samantha Corbin Miller, who last wrote on Victimless Crimes, and directed by Jeannot Soir, who last directed Marooned. Which leaves us with only one last thing to do before we have to click over to our iPhones or however else we're listening to the audio version of this. But first...
What is that supposed to mean? What's your problem?
We're a couple of overlay templates short.
Is this what happens to women when you insert your penis?
What? What does Mike think's gonna happen?
You know, what if he would have drank the curdled milk? Then what would have happened?
You know, it continues, once again, no previously on, and so I'm left. I'm left wondering, I'm left dreaming,
Pirates.
I'm left hoping for pirates. Blowing smoke. Well, here's my bold prediction. Probably
Okay.
not so bold. In the first season, Lindsay took on Big Tobacco. Then later
Yes.
on, they try to sue Big Tobacco again. And then there's another case. Well, that's the cancer cluster cell, but that's not Big Tobacco.
Right. And we forgot about the asbestos thing entirely.
My feeling is that we haven't got a lot of Lindsay lately. And so I don't know. Well, Egon, God, he's still in jail, right?
Is he?
It's like we don't do a podcast on this.
They only did like 14 episodes on it, and we do a podcast. And like, is he in jail? Is he not in jail? I don't remember.
Regardless, that I think the Big Tobacco case must rear its head back. I think that's the smoke. They think they're so clever with the naming. Let's remember Bay of Pigs.
Yes.
So my guess is Big Tobacco's back. I think it's probably the same case. Maybe because I can't imagine they would like do a whole secondary case suing Big Tobacco for something else. Mm-hmm. So my guess is that it comes back. There's like an appeal or something, and we revisit Lindsay's crusade against Big Tobacco.
Okay. All right. Well, folks, it is time to click over to your iPod sessions.
In the YouTube description, I put a direct link that not only will link you to the podcast, but it will link you to the exact moment the episode starts and Keith and I start talking about it.
Wow. That is some professionalism we have not demonstrated in any other part of this.
That's if you're listening on the internet. If you've got your podcast and you subscribe to it on your phone, in the show notes each week, I link to each segment. And so you can just click on the episode starts and listen to us talk, and then come on back and watch our faces move when we talk about the oopsies later.
Wow.
But until then, Keith, I think it's time for you and I to pay the bill, and we will be back after the awesome segment that you should go subscribe and listen to. Like and subscribe. Eop, eop. Did you catch that reference? Eop, Keith?
I did not know.
That's what the Visco girls say.
What is a Visco girl?
Oh my God. Get on the YouTube, Keith. Figure it out. Google something.
I'm old.
We'll be back after this ad that you don't have to listen to on YouTube.
And folks, we are back. We have just watched the episode Blowing Smoke, The Practice Season 4, Episode 11. And now, for those of you who are just on the YouTube, we are adding a new segment. It doesn't have a song yet, but Mike's going to do that this week. And that is, what does Mike remember happened just now? We're going to put 30 seconds on the board and go.
This week, Rebecca successfully defends an ex-boyfriend racist cop who executes a kid in a convenience store. Meanwhile, Lindsay successfully sues a cigar company for ruining the marriage of an old friend of hers, even though it's not really about her old friend, but more about Lindsay's fear about her upcoming marriage to Bobby McD.
Yes. Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Hold on. You deserve this. Well done. And it is now time to begin.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Out of Practice podcast, in unofficial, unsolicited, unfactual association with David E. Kelly Productions, proudly present
Oopsie.
The Oopsies! Celebrating excellence in acting good, lawyering good, guesting good, and being Tom Brady. Not to mention, this is where we rate the episode and stuff. Now, here are your hosts, Keith and Mike.
What the hell are the Oopsies?
Well, clearly, the Oopsies are our amazing award show that has all of the prestige you would imagine a completely fictional award show about an unlistened to podcast. Okay, and we begin, of course, with
Most
So this is where we're going to get, well, man, we're going to have a lot of complicated conversations this
is
week.
going to be a difficult one, yeah.
Well,
all right, let's talk through the nominees.
Okay, the nominees, I believe, are Rebecca Washington and Lindsay Dole. They both win their cases this week. Lindsay brings a lot of money into the firm. Rebecca is successful, even though they both are left with some moral quandaries. Lindsay pulled the biggest rabbit out of her hat, I think.
Yes.
She pulled the most sort of legal mumbo-jumbo.
She manufactured the win, as opposed to there were some sort of institutional advantages that Rebecca had here.
Yeah, I think... And she wasn't really... Jimmy, she called as her second chair, who didn't do anything.
He didn't even know what was happening. He was just there, like, waiting for the catering to show up with some sandwiches.
You know what? I think I'm going to go with Lindsay Dole this week.
Okay. All right. Well, for my half of the very important Oopsie Award, I'm going to throw a curveball. And I am going to give it to Helen Gamble.
Whoa.
Even though she lost.
Yes,
as prosecuting the cop for murdering somebody in a store. And here's why. First off, our good friend Phoenix is always talking about not being so results-oriented and be more about what she did. But it's not even... I thought she did a perfectly good job in the court case. But I am giving this to her for even bothering to prosecute the cop for shooting somebody. Because that is a really... As we're finding out now, it's really difficult for a DA to prosecute a cop for shooting somebody, for killing somebody. But it also leads me to another question on that. Would this cop have even been charged if he were white? And I think, I don't know, but anyway, he deserved to be charged. He deserved to have consequences for what he did. And even though he was acquitted, she did try to hold him accountable, and I thought did a good job. And thinking about it, if this case took place in 2020, I think she would have won. So
I sure hope so.
For that reason, I give mine to Helen Gamble. So congratulations, Lindsay Dole and Helen Gamble, for splitting this week's Most Valuable Lawyer Award, which takes us to our next category.
Already famous cause you've been on TV, getting a paycheck, or the first entry on your IMDb. Way to go, but you're the best guest actor. You are the best guest actor. You are the best guest actor on the episode.
I think it goes without saying, luckily we don't have to spend too much time on this one. Victor Williams, an amazing performance as Officer Craig Armstrong. A difficult performance, I'm sure, on many levels.
Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, very easy, I think, to go overboard when you're playing the racist bad cop. But I think the fact that he played it with such subtlety, and I'm sure that was a good direction as well, really adds some interesting grays to the palette.
And I think he also played it, and I think this is part of the misdirection of it, is that he's a huge guy, but physically, his facial structure, he looks like a really nice guy. And he played it with this sort of like integrity throughout the entire episode that was chipped away once we found out what was actually happening. And I thought it was just a good misdirection there. And I thought he did, and the fact that he never gave up his perspective of having done the right thing, and played that honestly. And I don't know. I thought, yes, it was a very, very good performance. So congratulations to Victor Williams on your Best Guest Actor Award. And now comes another difficult one.
You killed your podiatrist or blew the case, but you let a single tear run down your face. You're the best actor on the show.
I think it's between Kelly Williams and Lisa Gay Hamilton here once again.
Yep.
And Kelly gave an excellent performance, especially that last scene with Bobby. I thought was really special.
Yeah.
However, on the whole, I still think Lisa Gay had a more comprehensive episode as an actress, and I think she had so many interesting beats. That facial beat alone in the courtroom, I think, is my favorite, where she didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And just had a realization and then had to adapt and then change her tactic as the character like that in a non-scripted beat. Awesome. Also, her realization in her interview with her ex-boyfriend, Officer Craig Armstrong, where she realized that he actually was a bad guy.
Right.
Just a lot of conflict that she was able to resolve as an actress and do that in a way that we as the audience saw it and felt it. I just thought was really a masterclass once again, and I'm happy to award my vote to Lisa Gay Hamilton.
Yeah, well, everything you said about Lisa Gay's performance is absolutely true. And it's funny. I think you said that like her character went on the bigger journey, and I actually think that Lindsay's character showed more different colors.
Mm-hmm.
You know, her her like eviscerating of the tobacco guy, you know, at the end of the closing that case, and her sort of vulnerability with Bobby. It was a tremendous performance from Kelly Williams. And I think would be deserving of an oopsie almost any other week of the show. But I actually agree with you. I think Lisa Gay's, the level of skill it takes to stick the landing so subtly that you're able to, the director had to trust that she was going to do a tremendous amount of nonverbal storytelling completely, like instantaneously, so fast. She's in the middle of a line and that's all it is. That little pause is all that she had to tell us a whole bunch. And she really did. And it's just tremendous, tremendous work by Lisa Gay Hamilton. So congratulations, Lisa Gay Hamilton. You win the Oopsie for Best Actor. Coming up next, everybody's favorite.
The Tom Brady Award for being Tom Brady.
Oh, Tom. Tom. Well, as you maybe you don't know this, Keith, but on Monday, so the day before this podcast drops, we here in New York City will be entering phase 2.
Oh, yes.
Which means that you can go get a haircut again and like eat outside and stuff.
I cut my own hair, thank you very much.
Yeah, it looks great.
Not horrible.
Yeah, look at that.
That's not terrible, right?
No, it's not bad at all.
Still have hair on my head.
So I think that it only makes sense that this week's Tom Brady Award for being Tom Brady is awarded to Phase 2 Tom Brady.
Phase 2 Tom Brady.
Which will not only force you to do some photoshopping, but will also force you to educate yourself on the actual particulars of Phase 2 so that you can adequately visualize it for our audience.
Yeah, I'm really curious exactly how I can visually represent Phase 2 for Mr. Tom Brady, but you have thrown me many challenges over the years, and I accept the challenge to come up with Phase 2 Tom Brady. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to announce how many spare tires this episode gets.
Yeah.
Last week, we were very divided.
Yes, we were.
This week, we'll see, I guess. I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it raised some really interesting conversations. Even, the tobacco case wasn't even that particularly, the cigar case wasn't particularly interesting. We've spun that tire before.
Yeah.
But looking at it, framing it through a narrative lens of Lindsay's stress and anxiety about relationships in her marriage, it worked for me. I know that that's sometimes not your bag. The relationship dramas isn't usually your thing. It sold it for me. And I didn't find it to be so bizarrely juxtaposed with a really heavy sort of social commentary in the other case. I do think the other case suffered a little bit because it sort of, I still think it's more interesting when they don't just make him an outright bad guy, which he sort of admits to when they pull up the sort of first-degree murder from before. I think that it sort of one-notes the character a bit, but...
Well, there wasn't a first-degree murder before. He did first-degree murder because he was getting revenge on the guy.
Right. I just meant when they brought up his other cases and how they, and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, what I'm saying is that I thought it was a really cool episode. I thought it was well acted, well performed. Even the comedic beats worked this time, and they didn't do as many. Just having Lucy with her one little comedic beat in the beginning. Jimmy had a couple of Jimmies. I just thought it was a really solid, typical performance. A story, B story, both were solid. I thought it was good. So I'm going to give it 8 spare tires for season 4, episode 11.
8 spare tires. Yeah, I agree with you on sort of all of that. I thought that the cigar case, I was wondering, where is this going? I mean, I love watching Lindsay smack tobacco around. Like that just brings me joy. But
Lindsay is wishing something else was getting smacked around, if you know what I'm saying.
I got a very big dick.
Okay, we're gonna have to retire that bumper at some point. But the tying it to the marriage didn't make any sense to me until sort of clocking what's going on with Lindsay coming up with the marriage to Bobby. So that that storyline sort of retroactively redeemed itself. It retroactively became an interesting storyline. So sometimes that happens, and that's okay. And I thought the case, Rebecca's case was, again, so relevant, so prescient. I really liked that. I really liked that this episode didn't both sides it. On some ways, like, the gray area, the ambiguity, fine, that's sort of the bread and butter of the show. But in this case, a cop shooting somebody for no reason shouldn't be both sides. And even though I think they pushed it a little too far by having it be first degree, I like that it was, we didn't have like our team and Helen's team sort of on equal footing. And we're like, who's going to win? I don't know what's going to happen. I liked seeing in Rebecca's character, the like, oh shit, we are on the wrong side of this. There isn't really both sides to this. This is just flat out murder. And I like that they held that accountable. I thought that was a good beat for the show, especially looking back on it 21 years later. Or 20 years later. Now we're in the year 2000. So,
in the year 2000.
Yeah. So, actually, after that speech, I have talked myself into matching your 8 spare tires.
Wow. Okay.
So, congratulations, blowing smoke. You have earned 8 spare tires from the Out of Practice podcast. And if you would like to join the conversation, well, first off, you can comment right below. Like and subscribe, leave a comment here, or you can email us at outofpracticepodcast@gmail.com. We are on the social medias, on Instagram and Facebook at Out of Practice Podcast. You can find our blog. Check out all of our graphics, more things going on at outofpracticepodcast.blogspot.com. You can give us money, and Mike will tell you how.
It's always in the show notes. You can become a monthly subscriber by clicking on that particular link in the show notes, or you can send us a one-time donation like our new friend, Jennifer, did through our PayPal link, which is also below. I'm sorry, I haven't memorized everybody's name yet. Luckily, there are so few of you that I can probably do that. If you will be in the greater Cape May, New Jersey area next week, come check out. Keith and I will both be there, but stay far, far away. Because we're only phase 2, baby.
Yes, and please join the jury.
Yes.
And leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other podcasting service. Just let us know about it. We will read it and welcome you to the jury.
Set your phasers to phase 2 and shoot off some laser sounds.
Laser sounds.